My name is Catherine, and at 57, I thought I knew my daughter Amanda pretty well. As a hospital administrator, I've spent my career caring for others, especially my two children, after my husband's early passing. When Amanda got engaged, I was thrilled, eagerly awaiting my invitation. Instead, what arrived was a $60,000 invoice for her wedding and honeymoon with a cold note. "You should feel lucky I'm letting you contribute at all." The calm smile that spread across my face that day would change everything between us forever. Before I continue this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had to make a difficult decision about family boundaries. Growing up without their father wasn't easy for my children. When David, my husband, passed away from a sudden heart attack 18 years ago, Michael was 14 and Amanda only 11. The grief was overwhelming, but I had to be strong for them. We had some life insurance money, but not enough to maintain our lifestyle indefinitely, so I worked extra shifts at the hospital, eventually climbing from nurse to administrator. Michael, now 32, lives just 20 minutes away with his wife Sarah. They have a beautiful 2-year-old son named Jack, who is the light of my life. Michael calls me at least twice a week, and we have Sunday dinner together almost every month. He's always been the practical one, level-headed and considerate. Amanda, 29 now, was always more spirited and ambitious. She had big dreams, and I did everything in my power to make them possible. When she got accepted to Stanford for her undergraduate degree, I remortgaged our home to help pay for it. 4 years later, when she wanted to pursue her MBA at Columbia, I dipped into my retirement savings. I never complained because I wanted to give her the opportunities her father would have wanted for her. Our relationship was never perfect. Amanda could be distant and critical at times, but we maintained regular contact through calls and occasional visits. I treasured the moments when she would open up about her career in marketing for a luxury goods company in New York City. She seemed to be thriving in that world of high fashion and premium brands. When Amanda met Jason Prescott 3 years ago, she was over the moon. He came from a wealthy family with connections in real estate development across the East Coast. The Prescotts had vacation homes in the Hamptons and Aspen, and Jason worked for his father's company as an executive vice president. "Mum, he's amazing," Amanda gushed during one of our phone calls. "You're going to love him. His family knows absolutely everyone who matters in New York." I was happy that Amanda had found someone who made her excited about the future. When they got engaged after dating for 2 years, I immediately called to congratulate her. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart," I told her. "I can't wait to help with the wedding plans. Just let me know what you need." There was a slight pause before Amanda responded. "Thanks, Mum. We'll see. The Prescotts have a lot of connections, and Jason's mother knows all the best wedding planners." That should have been my first warning sign, but I brushed it off, thinking she was just excited about her future in-laws, resources, and connections. As the months passed after the engagement, I noticed subtle changes in Amanda's behavior. Our weekly phone calls became monthly, then sporadic. When we did speak, she seemed distracted and would often cut our conversations short. "Amanda, is everything okay?" I asked during one particularly brief call. "You seem a bit distant lately." "Everything's fine, Mum," she replied with a sigh. "I'm just really busy with work and wedding planning. The Prescotts have introduced us to so many important people, and we have a lot of social obligations." I tried not to take it personally, but it hurt to feel like I was becoming an afterthought in my daughter's life. Still, I kept reaching out, sending her articles about wedding trends, offering to go dress shopping, asking if I could host a bridal shower. Her responses became increasingly dismissive. "The dress is already taken care of, Mum. Elizabeth Jason's mother connected me with this incredible designer." Or, "We're actually having the bridal shower at the Prescott's Country Club. It's just easier with their guest list." I finally met the Prescotts at an engagement dinner they hosted at an exclusive restaurant in Manhattan. Elizabeth Prescott was tall and elegantly dressed in what I could tell was expensive designer clothing. Her husband Richard had the confident demeanour of a man accustomed to being in charge. "So, Catherine," Elizabeth said, sipping her champagne, "Amanda tells us you work at a hospital back in Pennsylvania." "Yes, I'm an administrator at Mercy General," I replied proudly. "I've been there for 25 years now." "How quaint," she responded with a thin smile. "It must be rewarding to work in public service." The way she said public service made it sound like I was emptying bedpans instead of managing a department with dozens of staff and a multi-million-dollar budget. Throughout the evening, I noticed how Amanda seemed to hang on Elizabeth's every word. She laughed a little too loudly at Richard's jokes and kept referencing their vacation homes and country club memberships. "Mum doesn't really play golf," Amanda said when the topic came up. She laughed nervously. "She's more of a gardening and book club type." I smiled through the dinner, but inside my heart was breaking. My daughter was embarrassed by me. The girl who once proudly brought me to career day at school now seemed ashamed of her middle-class mother, who had given everything to provide for her. As the wedding planning progressed, the divide between us grew wider. Amanda began to adopt the Prescotts' manner of speaking their opinions, even their critical view of things that didn't meet their standards of luxury. "Mum, you're not still driving that old Honda, are you?" she asked during one visit, wrinkling her nose. "It's so economy." I had bought that Honda when she started college, foregoing a more expensive car, so I could help pay for her education. The irony seemed lost on her. "It's reliable," I replied simply, "and it's paid for." "Well, when you come to the wedding, maybe you could rent something a bit more presentable," she suggested. "The Prescott's friends will all be driving Mercedes and BMWs. That comment stung more than she knew. But I swallowed my pride, determined to maintain our relationship despite her changing attitudes. "When will I get the official invitation?" I asked, trying to change the subject. "I'd like to request time off work well in advance." "Oh, we're still finalising the guest list," Amanda said vaguely. "Elizabeth has so many important contacts that need to be included." That was the first hint that my place at my own daughter's wedding wasn't guaranteed. Still, I never imagined how far things would go. As winter turned to spring, Amanda became increasingly evasive about wedding details. When I called, she'd rush through conversations, claiming she was late for appointments with florists, caterers, or wedding planners. I learned more about her wedding plans from my son Michael than from Amanda herself. "Did you know they've booked that famous Plaza Hotel in New York?" Michael asked during one of our Sunday dinners. "Sarah and I got our save the date card yesterday." My heart sank. I hadn't received anything, but I tried not to jump to conclusions. "That's wonderful," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm sure mine is just delayed in the mail." Michael gave me a sympathetic look, but didn't comment further. I could tell he was concerned about the situation too. The Prescotts' influence over Amanda grew stronger with each passing week. When I suggested hosting a small family gathering at my home for the engaged couple, Amanda quickly dismissed the idea. "Mum, we don't really have time," she said. "Besides, the Prescotts are hosting a series of engagement parties at various venues for different circles of their friends. It's taking up most of our weekends." "I see," I replied, trying to hide my disappointment. "Well, perhaps I could attend one of those. I'd love to meet more of Jason's family and friends." There was an uncomfortable silence before Amanda answered. "They're really more for the Prescott's social and business connections, Mum. I don't think you'd fit in." Those words cut deep. My daughter didn't think I would fit in with the crowd she now considered important. The girl I had raised, whose college education I had sacrificed my financial security for, was now embarrassed to have me at social functions with her new family. I made one last attempt to be involved by offering to go wedding dress shopping with her. "That's sweet, Mum, but I've already found my dress," Amanda told me. "Elizabeth took me to this exclusive boutique in Manhattan. It's a custom Vera Wang. The designer herself made some suggestions." "Oh," I said, unable to hide the hurt in my voice. "I would have loved to be part of that experience." "Well, you probably wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway," Amanda replied dismissively. The dresses started at $20,000. I know how you feel about excessive spending. The way she put air quotes around those words made it clear that she no longer valued the financial responsibility I had tried to instill in her. I attended that disastrous dinner with both families at an upscale restaurant in New York City. I'd spent more than I should have on a new dress for the occasion, wanting to make a good impression. Still, I felt woefully underdressed compared to Elizabeth Prescott's designer outfit and abundant jewelry. "Catherine, I'm curious," Richard Prescott said during the meal, swirling his expensive wine. "What are your thoughts on the wedding venue? The plaza isn't cheap, but nothing but the best for our children, right?" I hadn't even known the wedding would be at the plaza. Amanda hadn't shared that detail with me. "I think whatever makes Amanda happy is fine," I answered, carefully glancing at my daughter, who was studying her plate intently. "And the honeymoon plans," Elizabeth chimed in. "Amanda tells us they're considering either the Maldives or a tour of the Italian coast. Both would be marvellous options." Again, this was news to me. I took a sip of water to hide my surprise. "Mum's pretty traditional," Amanda interjected with a forced laugh. "She probably thinks a honeymoon at Niagara Falls would be sufficient." The Prescotts laughed, and I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. I had actually taken Amanda to Niagara Falls when she was 12, one of our few vacations after her father died. It had been a special memory for me, but apparently it was now a joke at my expense. As I drove home that night, I cried for the first time in years. The daughter I had raised seemed to be vanishing before my eyes, replaced by someone who valued status and wealth over family bonds. I remembered the little girl who used to crawl into my bed after her father died, seeking comfort. Where had that sweet, loving child gone? I tried reaching out to Amanda several more times over the next few weeks, but her responses were increasingly cold and distant. I learned about the wedding date not from my daughter, but from Michael, who called me one evening clearly uncomfortable. "Mum, did you know the wedding is set for June 15th? He asked hesitantly. "No," I admitted, my voice small. "Amanda hasn't shared that with me." There was a long pause before Michael continued. "Sarah and I received our formal invitation yesterday. I just assumed you had too." I gripped the phone tighter, fighting back tears. "No, nothing yet, but I'm sure it's coming." But deep down, a part of me was beginning to fear the worst, that my own daughter might not want me at her wedding at all. On a Tuesday morning in late April, I found a cream-coloured envelope in my mailbox. The paper was thick and expensive-looking, with my name and address written in beautiful calligraphy. My heart leaped with hope and relief. Finally, my invitation had arrived. I hurried inside and sat at my kitchen table, carefully opening the envelope, not wanting to damage what I thought would be a beautiful wedding invitation. Inside was indeed a beautifully designed card. But it wasn't an invitation, it was an invoice. For several moments I just stared at it, not quite comprehending what I was seeing. The document was meticulously itemized: wedding ceremony at the plaza, 15,000 reception, catering, 150 guests, 21,000 honeymoon accommodations in the Maldives, 12,000 honeymoon activities and expenses, 12,000 total. 60,000 at the bottom, in Amanda's handwriting, was a note. "You should feel lucky I'm letting you contribute at all." I felt as though someone had punched me in the stomach. My hands trembled as I read and reread the invoice and note, trying to make sense of it. This couldn't be real. My daughter couldn't possibly be this cruel, this entitled. But there it was, in black and white, and in her own handwriting. Amanda hadn't invited me to her wedding, but she expected me to pay for a significant portion of it. I sat there for what felt like hours, the invoice on the table before me. Finally, I reached for my phone and called Michael. "Michael," I said when he answered, my voice shaking, "I got something from Amanda today." "Your invitation, finally," he sounded relieved. "No," I replied, the word catching in my throat. "An invoice for $60,000 for the wedding and honeymoon." The silence that followed was deafening. "She's asking you to pay for the wedding without inviting you," Michael finally asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and anger. Yes, I confirmed, tears now streaming down my face. There's a note saying I should feel lucky she's letting me contribute. This is insane, Michael exploded. Who does she think she is? And who does she think you are? Some kind of wedding ATM. As Michael continued to express his outrage, a terrible thought occurred to me. Michael, I interrupted, did your invitation mention me at all, like Catherine Morris and family, or something similar? Another pause. No, Mum. It's addressed specifically to Michael and Sarah Morris. There's no mention of you. That confirmation broke something inside me. My own daughter had deliberately excluded me from her wedding while simultaneously demanding that I fund it. The level of disrespect, the sheer callousness of it, was almost incomprehensible. What are you going to do? Michael asked gently. I don't know, I admitted. I need some time to think. After we hung up, I sat in my silent kitchen until night fell. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything but the beautifully designed invoice sitting on my table like a venomous snake. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, remembering Amanda as a little girl, with skinned knees running to me for comfort. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike, helping her with homework, celebrating her academic achievements, consoling her through teenage heartbreaks. I had been there for every important moment of her life, and now I wasn't even important enough to be invited to her wedding. I was just a checkbook to her. The realization was like a physical pain in my chest. Somewhere along the way, my daughter had stopped seeing me as a person worthy of respect and love. To her, I was now just a financial resource, someone whose only value was in what I could provide materially. I thought about the Prescotts and their influence. Had they encouraged this behavior? Were they aware of what Amanda was doing? Or was this entirely my daughter's decision, the culmination of years of entitlement that I had perhaps unwittingly fostered by always putting her needs and wants first? As dawn broke, I had no answers, only a profound sense of loss and betrayal. The daughter I thought I knew seemed to be a stranger to me now, someone capable of breathtaking selfishness and cruelty. What hurt the most wasn't the money, though. $60,000 was far more than I could afford without seriously compromising my retirement security. What cut deepest was the clear message that my presence at my only daughter's wedding was considered unnecessary, while my financial contribution was deemed essential. It was as if all the years of love, sacrifice, and care meant nothing. All that mattered was what I could give in dollars and cents. The morning after receiving Amanda's invoice, I called in sick to work for the first time in years. I needed time to process what had happened and decide how to respond. My boss, knowing me as a dedicated employee who rarely took time off, didn't question my request. I spent that morning pulling out old photo albums from the hallway closet. There was Amanda, on her first day of kindergarten, her smile revealing a missing front tooth. Another showed her at her 8th grade graduation, standing proudly between me and Michael. I lingered on a photo of Amanda at her high school prom, wearing a dress I had worked overtime shifts to afford. So many memories, so many sacrifices. I had given up vacations, delayed home repairs, worked extra hours, all to ensure my children had the opportunities they deserved after losing their father. I never regretted any of it. But looking at these photos now, I wondered where I had gone wrong with Amanda. Had I given her too much? Had I failed to teach her the value of money and the importance of gratitude? Or was this transformation entirely due to the influence of Jason and his family, with their emphasis on wealth and status? In the afternoon, I pulled out my financial records and took a hard look at my situation. At 57, I was still a decade away from my planned retirement. The college funds for both children had depleted my savings significantly. My mortgage was nearly paid off, but I had far less in my retirement accounts than financial advisors recommended for someone my age. The $60,000 Amanda was demanding would mean working several extra years beyond my planned retirement age. It might mean giving up the small condo in Florida I had been saving for where I'd planned to escape Pennsylvania winters in my later years. I called my friend Patricia, who had raised 3 children as a single mother after her divorce. Her oldest daughter had gone through a similar entitled phase in her 20s. I gave Melissa everything she asked for at her wedding. Patricia told me, $30,000 I didn't have. Took out a home equity loan to cover it. And now, I asked. Patricia sighed heavily. She barely visits. When she does, she criticizes my house, my car, my clothes. I enabled her entitled behavior, and now I'm paying for it emotionally while still paying off that loan. Her words hit home. If I gave Amanda the money she was demanding, what message would that send? That it was acceptable to treat me with such disrespect. That I valued being in her good graces more than I valued my own dignity and financial security. As the day progressed, my hurt began to transform into something else: clarity. I had spent so many years putting my children's needs before my own that I had forgotten an essential truth. Self-respect matters. Boundaries matter. Teaching my children to be kind, considerate adults matters. By evening, I had made my decision. It wasn't easy, and I knew it might permanently alter my relationship with Amanda. But for perhaps the first time since becoming a mother, I chose to prioritize what I knew was right over what would make my child happy in the moment. I would not be paying for Amanda's wedding or honeymoon, not because I couldn't scrape together the money somehow, but because doing so would validate her belief that I existed solely to fulfill her material desires, regardless of how she treated me. It was one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made. But as I made myself a simple dinner that night, I felt something I hadn't expected: a sense of peace. Whatever happened next, I would face it knowing I had stood up for myself and, in a way, for the values I had tried to instill in my children. The next day, I returned to work with a plan forming in my mind. I would respond to Amanda, but not in the way she expected. My response would be firm, but fair, motivated by love rather than anger. I hoped that someday she might understand that this was perhaps the most important life lesson I could teach her. Over the next few days, I worked methodically to prepare my response to Amanda. First, I created a detailed spreadsheet documenting every major expense I had covered for her over the years. 4 years of undergraduate tuition at Stanford, $180,000, 4 years of housing and meal plans, $68,000, MBA tuition at Columbia, $144,000, living expenses during graduate school, $72,000, car purchased for college graduation, $28,000, first apartment, security deposit, and furnishings, $12,000, additional expenses, study abroad, internship support, etc., $35,000. The total came to $539,000, a number that shocked even me when I tallied it up. I had never kept track before because supporting my children was simply what I did as a mother. But seeing it quantified so starkly was sobering. I made an appointment with my financial advisor, Lisa, who had helped me navigate my finances since David's death. Catherine, to be blunt, you cannot afford to give your daughter $60,000 right now, Lisa said, after reviewing my financial situation. Your retirement accounts are already below where they should be for someone your age. This would severely impact your future security. I know, I replied. I've already decided not to pay it. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to respond. Lisa nodded approvingly. It's hard to say no to our children, but sometimes that's exactly what they need from us. With Lisa's encouragement, I drafted a letter to Amanda. I wrote and rewrote it several times, wanting to strike the right balance between firmness and love. I didn't want anger or hurt to colour my words, even though both emotions still swirled within me. The final version read, Dear Amanda, I received your invoice for $60,000 to cover costs associated with your wedding and honeymoon. I must admit, it came as a shock, particularly since I have not received an invitation to the wedding itself. After careful consideration, I need to inform you that I will not be paying this invoice. This decision is not made lightly, nor is it made out of anger or a desire to punish you. Rather, it comes from a place of both financial reality and maternal love. Financially, a contribution of this size would significantly impact my retirement security, potentially forcing me to work many additional years beyond what I had planned. While I have always prioritized your needs and education at this stage in my life, I must also consider my own future. More importantly, I believe that paying this invoice without being included in your special day would not be healthy for either of us. It would establish a precedent that our relationship is transactional rather than familial, something I cannot accept. I have always been and will always be your mother. I love you unconditionally. That love has motivated every sacrifice I've made throughout your life. If you choose to include me in your wedding, I would be honored to attend and would gladly contribute $5,000 toward the celebration as my gift to you and Jason. Enclosed, you'll find a symbolic check representing the investments I've already made in your future. It is not a request for repayment, but rather a reminder of the love that has always accompanied those investments. I hope that in time, you'll understand that this letter comes from a place of love, not just for you, but also for the woman I've raised you to be, one who values relationships above material things, who treats others with respect and kindness, and who understands that the true wealth in life comes from how we love and care for one another. I remain, as always, a phone call away. All my love, Mum. With the letter I enclosed a symbolic check I had created on my computer. It was made out to Amanda Morris for the amount of $539 to $1,000, with the memo line reading, "Investment in your future success." Under the amount I wrote, "Paid in full with love." I also included a real check for $5,000 as a wedding gift contingent on receiving an invitation. Before mailing the package, I made copies of everything and showed them to Michael. He read the letter with tears in his eyes. "Mom, this is perfect," he said. "It's kind, but firm. I'm so proud of you." His approval meant the world to me. Michael had always been the peacemaker in our family, and I knew this situation was painful for him too, caught between his mother and sister. The next morning, I mailed the package to Amanda's apartment in New York. I sent it with delivery confirmation so I would know when it arrived. Then I waited mentally, preparing myself for the reaction that would surely come. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, my phone rang just after dinner. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "How dare you?" Amanda's voice was shaking with anger. "How dare you send me this condescending letter and fake check?" I had anticipated rage, but the intensity still caught me off guard. I took another steadying breath before responding. "Hello, Amanda. I'm sorry you're upset, but I stand by everything I wrote in that letter." What followed was the most difficult conversation I'd ever had with my daughter. Amanda's words were cutting, designed to wound. She called me selfish, uncaring, a terrible mother. She accused me of never supporting her, of being jealous of her success and her relationship with the Prescotts. I listened without interrupting, letting her unleash her fury. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. "Amanda, I love you more than words can express. That will never change, but I cannot and will not be treated as nothing more than a source of funding for a wedding I'm not even invited to attend." "You don't understand," she snapped. "The Prescotts have a certain standard for everything. Jason's mother has invited all these important people. Having you there would just complicate things." Her words confirmed my worst fears. My daughter was ashamed of me, of my middle-class status and background. I was an embarrassment she wanted to hide while still expecting me to foot the bill. "I'm your mother, Amanda," I said, my voice breaking slightly despite my efforts to remain composed. not a complication to be managed. The fallout from my refusal to pay was swift and far-reaching. The day after our phone conversation, I received a series of increasingly hostile text messages from Amanda, culminating in an ultimatum: either I pay the full $60,000 or I would never see her again. "Is that really what you want?" I texted back. "To end our relationship over money?" Her response was chilling. "This isn't about money, it's about respect. If you respected me and my choices, you would support my wedding the way a real mother should." I didn't reply immediately, recognizing that we were both too emotional for a productive conversation. Later that evening, my phone rang again, but this time it wasn't Amanda calling, it was Jason. "Mrs. Morris," he began formally, "I'm calling about the situation with the wedding costs." "I see Amanda has discussed this with you," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Yes, she's quite upset," he said. "Look, I understand your position might be difficult, but surely you can see how important this wedding is for Amanda's future. My parents have certain expectations, and their connections are extremely valuable." The implication was clear. This lavish wedding was less about celebrating love and more about impressing the Prescotts' social circle. "Jason," I said carefully, "I've always supported Amanda's happiness, but I can't spend money I don't have on a wedding I'm not invited to attend." "Well, about that." He sounded uncomfortable. "We've been discussing it, and if the financial contribution is contingent on your attendance, I suppose we could find a place for you at one of the back tables." His condescending offer to find a place for me at my own daughter's wedding contingent on my paying $60,000 was the final straw. "Thank you for the offer, Jason, but I'll have to decline," I said, with as much dignity as I could muster. "Please let Amanda know that my offer of $5,000 as a gift still stands if I'm welcomed as her mother, not as a financial contributor." After hanging up, I felt drained but strangely empowered. For too long, I had allowed Amanda to dictate the terms of our relationship. Now, I was establishing boundaries that should have been in place years ago. The next day brought another surprise. Richard Prescott, Jason's father, called me at work. "Catherine," he said, his tone businesslike, "I understand there's been some confusion about the wedding finances." "Not confusion, Richard," I corrected him. "A difference of expectations." He was quiet for a moment. "I see. Well, I wanted you to know that Elizabeth and I were not aware that Amanda had sent you that invoice. That was her initiative entirely." This revelation surprised me. I had assumed the Prescotts were behind Amanda's demand. "Furthermore," Richard continued, "while we certainly didn't anticipate that you wouldn't be attending the wedding, that was also Amanda's decision, not ours." I wasn't sure whether to believe him or not, but his next words seemed sincere. "For what it's worth, I respect your position. Standing your ground can't have been easy." After Richard's call, events took an unexpected turn. Word of what had happened spread through our extended family and friend circles. To my surprise, many people reached out to offer support. My sister Julia called from Arizona. "I always thought you gave that girl too much," she said bluntly. "It's about time you stood up for yourself." Even some of Amanda's childhood friends contacted me, expressing shock at her behavior. Her former roommate from college, Taylor, invited me to lunch. "Amanda has changed so much since she met Jason and his family," Taylor confided. "We hardly recognize her anymore. Everything is about status and appearances now." Meanwhile, Amanda was facing the reality that her dream wedding would need to be significantly scaled back without my contribution. I learned from Michael that the Prescotts, while wealthy, had set limits on what they were willing to pay for, especially after learning about Amanda's tactics with me. "They're covering the ceremony and reception," Michael told me during one of our calls, "but they said the honeymoon and some of the extras are the couple's responsibility." 3 weeks after I had mailed my response to Amanda, I received a text message from her that was markedly different in tone from her previous communications. "Mum, can we talk in person, not over the phone?" I agreed, and we arranged to meet at a cafe halfway between our homes the following weekend. I drove there with a mixture of hope and trepidation, unsure of what to expect. Amanda was already seated when I arrived, looking tired and subdued. She stood to greet me, hesitating, before giving me an awkward hug. "Thank you for coming," she said as we sat down. "Of course," I replied. "I'm always here for you, Amanda." She stared into her coffee cup for a long moment before speaking. "We've had to make some changes to the wedding plans," she finally said. "It's going to be smaller than we originally thought." I nodded, but didn't comment, waiting for her to continue. "Jason's parents are covering most of it, but they've set a budget. No Maldives honeymoon. We're going to the Bahamas instead." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Apparently, the Prescotts believe in fiscal responsibility too." "I'm sorry things didn't work out as you planned," I said sincerely. Amanda looked up, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. "Are you? Because it seems like you got what you wanted. You made your point." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Amanda, this was never about winning or making a point. It was about being treated with basic respect, both as your mother and as a person." She withdrew her hand, but her expression softened slightly. "I have something for you," she said, reaching into her purse. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a formal invitation to her wedding, now scheduled for a date 1 month later than originally planned at a different venue than the plaza. "It's at the Botanical Gardens now," Amanda explained. "Smaller guest list, less expensive catering, but it will still be beautiful." I looked at the invitation, emotion welling up in my throat. "Thank you, Amanda. This means a lot to me." "Well," she said, her voice still carrying a hint of resentment, "you made it pretty clear you wouldn't contribute otherwise." The comment stung, but I chose not to react to it. We were taking baby steps toward reconciliation, and I didn't want to derail the progress. "I'll be there," I promised, "and my offer of a $5,000 gift still stands." Amanda nodded, a glimmer of her old self showing through her polished exterior. "That would help with the photographer we want. The one the Prescotts suggested is honestly a bit stuffy." We talked for another hour, not resolving all our issues, but at least opening the door to healing. As we parted, Amanda hugged me again, this time with more warmth. "I'm sorry, Mum," she whispered. "I got carried away with all of this. The Prescotts, their lifestyle, it's intoxicating." "I understand." I told her, and I did. The allure of wealth and status was powerful, especially to someone who had grown up with financial constraints. As I drove home, I felt cautiously optimistic. Our relationship had been damaged, perhaps irrevocably changed, but not destroyed. There was hope for a new understanding between us, one based on mutual respect rather than expectation and obligation. The wedding itself was still a month away, and I knew there would be more challenges to navigate. But for the first time since receiving that invoice, I felt that my daughter and I might find our way back to each other. The day of Amanda's wedding dawned clear and sunny. I had chosen a simple but elegant navy blue dress for the occasion, wanting to look appropriate without drawing attention to myself. Michael and Sarah picked me up, little Jack adorable, in his tiny suit in the back seat. "Ready for this, Mum?" Michael asked, as he helped me into the car. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied with a smile that was only slightly nervous. The Botanical Gardens were beautiful, the ceremony space set up among flowering trees and manicured lawns. It wasn't the plaza, but it had a natural elegance that no hotel ballroom could match. I was seated in the front row, on the bride's side, a position of honor that surprised and touched me. As I waited for the ceremony to begin, Elizabeth Prescott approached impeccably dressed as always. "Catherine," she greeted me with a nod. "You look lovely." "Thank you," I responded. "The venue is beautiful. You and Richard have done a wonderful job with the arrangements." Elizabeth's expression softened slightly. "Yes, well, sometimes the most beautiful events aren't the most expensive ones." She paused. "Amanda mentioned your disagreement about the wedding expenses." I tensed, preparing for criticism, but Elizabeth surprised me. For what it's worth, I think you were right to stand your ground. Richard and I raised Jason to be financially responsible. We were concerned about the extravagance Amanda was pushing for. Before I could respond, music began playing, signaling the start of the ceremony. Elizabeth returned to her seat, leaving me to ponder her unexpected support. The wedding itself was beautiful in its simplicity. Amanda looked radiant in her dress, which I later learned was not the original Vera Wang, but a sample sale find she had fallen in love with. Jason seemed genuinely happy, his love for my daughter evident in his eyes as they exchanged vows. Just before the ceremony began, Amanda had asked to speak with me privately. In a small room off the main garden, she hugged me tightly. "Mum, I'm sorry," she said, tears threatening to ruin her carefully applied makeup. "I got so caught up in trying to impress the Prescotts and their friends that I lost sight of what really matters." "It's okay, sweetheart," I assured her. "We all make mistakes." She pulled back, looking at me earnestly. "But what I did wasn't just a mistake. It was cruel. I excluded you, the person who has always been there for me, because I was embarrassed about our middle-class background." She shook her head. "How could I have been so shallow? The allure of wealth and status is powerful," I said, echoing my thoughts from our cafe meeting. "And the Prescott's world is very different from how you grew up." "That's no excuse," Amanda insisted. "Anyway, I've learned something important through all this. The Prescotts respect people who stand up for themselves. After you refused to pay, Richard actually took me aside and said he thought you showed integrity." I smiled, recalling my phone conversation with Jason's father. "He mentioned something similar to me." Amanda looked surprised. "He called you—" "Yes. He wanted me to know that the invoice was your idea, not theirs." Amanda blushed. "That was mortifying. Elizabeth found out and read me the riot act about respect and family values." Our conversation was interrupted by the wedding planner announcing it was time to begin. Amanda squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you're here, Mum. It wouldn't be right without you." During the reception, I found myself seated at a table with Richard and Elizabeth, along with some of their close friends. I had expected to feel out of place, but to my surprise, the conversation flowed easily. "Catherine Amanda tells us you're a hospital administrator," one of Richard's friends commented. "That must be challenging work." "It is," I agreed, "but very rewarding. I oversee departments that directly impact patient care." "Impressive," the man nodded. "My daughter is in healthcare as well, though on the research side." Throughout the evening, I noticed a gradual shift in how the Prescotts and their friends interacted with me. The initial condescension had been replaced by something resembling respect. I realized that by standing my ground with Amanda, I had inadvertently earned their esteem in a way that trying to fit in never would have. After the honeymoon, Amanda and I began the slow process of rebuilding our relationship. She called more regularly and made time for visits that didn't feel rushed or obligatory. During one such visit, about 3 months after the wedding, she made a confession. "Living with Jason has been an education in financial reality," she admitted as we sat in my garden. "His parents are wealthy, yes, but they believe in earning your own way. They give advice and connections, but not blank checks." "That sounds like a healthy approach," I observed. Amanda nodded. "We both have good jobs, but New York is expensive. We're having to budget carefully, especially since we used most of our savings on the wedding and honeymoon." She gave me a rueful smile. "I think I understand now why you always emphasized financial responsibility." That conversation marked a turning point in our relationship. The entitled young woman who had demanded $60,000 without an invitation was maturing into someone who understood the value of money and, more importantly, the value of family. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were still moments when Amanda's acquired taste for luxury would surface, or when she would make a comment that revealed she hadn't entirely shed her materialistic outlook. But these instances became rarer as time passed. A year after the wedding, Amanda called with news she and Jason were expecting a baby. "Mum, we want you to be a big part of our child's life," she told me, her voice warm with emotion. "You're going to be an amazing grandmother." Those words healed something deep within me. The painful episode of the wedding invoice, while never forgotten, had led to something valuable. A more authentic, respectful relationship between mother and daughter. Standing up for myself had been difficult, even heartbreaking in the moment, but it had ultimately been an act of love not just for myself, but for Amanda too. By refusing to enable her entitled behaviour, I had helped her grow into a more considerate, appreciative person. The greatest gift we can give our children isn't money or material things. It's the guidance they now need to become their best selves, even when that guidance takes the form of a difficult no. As I look forward to welcoming my new grandchild, I'm grateful for the hard lesson we both learned. Our relationship now is stronger, more honest, and more mutually respectful than it had been in years. Sometimes turning a dream into a reality check is the most loving thing a mother can do. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision about financial boundaries with family? How did you handle it, and how did it change your relationship? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics with love and wisdom. Thank you for listening, and remember, true love sometimes means having the courage to say no when saying yes would be easier.